Hi, Cliff.
Hello, how you doing?
Fine, and you?
Good.
So, people, my name is Andrea.
I'm
Cliff
Cliff.
and I, we are the owners of Seminal English for Professionals, and we are here because we want to share some knowledge with you and to practice English, and who wants to listen to people speaking English about an interesting issue. If it is your goal, you are in the right place. Mateus is my friend, Cliff, that I was telling you. He's having some challenges on his university. And that guy that I told you about, the agronomy
hmm
school, okay? But we are here now tonight to talk about a, a term, a concept called glossophobia. Have you already heard of something about
Glossophobia.
that? Yes, yes, glossophobia. If he, if you think it's interesting, call your friends, call everybody you think it's important to be here with us to learn something new. So invite them to come. Send some planes here, invite
Yeah, send a
people
little
because
paper
how,
airplanes to five of your friends, right? Three of your friends.
yeah. And then I would like to explain how this live is gonna work, okay? This live has three specific parts. The first part, we are gonna talk about the concept of public speaking. It's not because of English, but public speaking general sense, public speaking concept. What is public speaking? The second part, we are going to talk about glossophobia. And this is
Glossophobia.
something related. It is related to public speaking. Do you know what is it? If you know, please write here, add a comment talking to us. Okay? And the third part, we are going to give you some tips to overcome the challenges that comes with public speaking.
Oh, thanks for those hearts. I
So,
love those hearts, guys. Send lots of
me
hearts
too.
towards us.
And I would like to invite you again. If you know somebody that should be here with us, invite these people, okay? So, Cliff?
So, public speaking really is the art of communication, right? Public speaking, Andrea has described it as communicating something that you're passionate about to other people. We have to use public speaking in a lot of areas of our lives. And when we think of public speaking, we think of formal speeches. And you may in your life have to give a formal speech, like perhaps a toast at a wedding, for example. So you might have to give a formal speech. But a lot of times when we are using public speaking, it's in less easily definable situations. When you need to make a sales presentation to a client, it's an example of public speaking, something that's common in most of our lives, right? When you need to do an interview, and that counts both sides of the interview. If I need to interview a potential employee, or if I am in an interview as a potential employee, or even an interview on the radio, right, darling? That's another
Yeah,
example of public speaking. And
yeah,
a common thing that most of us have to do for in our academic lives or in our professional lives is giving presentations. So you may have to give a safety presentation, or you have to give a presentation about a project or a business plan or a budget. That's a really common and quite necessary use of public speaking.
yeah. Uh, I think public speaking is something you say with your heart. If you want to talk to people, I'm reading a very interesting and important book about public speaking, because we are going to have a workshop, a public speaking workshop in November. And so we want to do our best. So I'm reading about the strategies of TED Talk. So, and then he says, if you have a good story, you could be a very good speaker. And public speaking is on the stage, of course, but also when you talk to a friend, when you do a presentation. So it's a very common situation. Mm-hmm. And then, so, and in spite of being a very important thing in the market, in our marketplace, at our companies, with our friends, at our schools, with our family, a lot of people are afraid of making communication, of doing a lecture, of having public speaking. So that's one of, in reality, it is the most terrible human fears. So
there was a study. Yeah, there was a study in 2013 in the Sunday Times that they asked people what their greatest fear was, right? So, you imagine in our modern lives all of the things that happen, right? So let's, would you guys like to know? Would you like to know what the top 7 fears are for British people, right? The Sunday Times is London. So what do you think the top 7 fears are for British people?
The top 7 is fear of death. People, I'm so sorry to tell you. Yeah. It's not, we don't know what happens after that, but it's the only thing we can be sure it's going to happen with us. So
there's two things are going to happen in life: death and taxes.
Yeah. Yes. Number 7, so, is fear of death. And number 6.
Number 6. And I think in our present situation, it makes a little bit of sense to us. Number 6 is the fear of disease. The fear of getting sick. Yeah.
And number 5, my mother has this kind of fear, is fear of deep waters. So
I can understand that fear, honestly.
Yeah.
If I'm in water that's not transparent, like if I can't see my feet, I get nervous. I can understand the fear of deep water. That kind of makes sense. You don't know. Maybe there's a shark.
Yeah, depending on where you are, it's a big problem. But
a shark could come out of anywhere. An alligator, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
And now our number 4 fear. Yes,
I have a Cliff secret about a crocodile.
Yeah.
When Cliff was about 5 years old, he was almost eaten by a crocodile.
Yeah, 5. An alligator, actually. Yeah. An alligator. Because it was North America. We don't have crocodiles in North America. We have alligators.
Okay, tell them about the story.
I almost got eaten by an alligator, guys. When you're a little kid and you roll down the hill, like you're on a grassy hill, you roll down the hill. So when I was a kid, my father decided to take the family on a tour of the historical sites on the East Coast of the United States. So we drove over a 2-week period, I think, almost 3 weeks. We drove from Pennsylvania down to Florida. And we stopped at a lot of famous, historical places from American history. And at one of the places we stopped, it was a fort from the time of the U.S. Civil War. And you know, around forts, you normally have that moat of water, right?
Yeah.
And in Florida, in the southeast of the United States, we have our giant reptile, the alligator, right? An alligator, guys, an alligator is not the same as a jacare, okay? They're relatives, but it's not the same animal. And an alligator is not the same as a crocodile. They're relatives, but it's not the same animal. And in the moat of this Civil War fort, there are a bunch of alligators. It's Florida, and there's alligators everywhere there's water. So, of course, the alligators live in the moat. And I, as a maybe 5 or 6 year old child, was playing with my brother. And we rolled down the grassy hill, and then we would run to the top and roll down the grassy hill. And I was rolling down the hill one of the times, and all of a sudden, this man came from nowhere, a man I did not know, came from nowhere and grabbed me. He like ran out of nowhere and grabbed me and was running. And here comes my dad running towards him. And I'm like 5 or 6 years old. I have no idea what's happening. And then the guy gives me to my dad, and my dad is in panic. And I look, and on the edge of that grassy hill, right next to the moat, there's an alligator with his mouth open, just waiting for me to roll into his mouth like a tasty snack. So my life was saved by a random stranger, right?
Yeah.
Be careful around alligators, guys. Alligators are serious animals, right? Hey, Bill, how you doing? Bill Ziegler, one of my old buddies from Delaware, stopped in.
Nice to meet you, Bill.
This time we're going to speak English, Bill. So last time he stopped into our live, it was in Portuguese, and Bill doesn't speak a lot of Portuguese.
Okay,
so,
but
today, Bill,
now he can understand us.
Bill, this is my girlfriend, Andrea. See.
Hi, Bill. Nice to meet you.
And how about the number 3 fear?
Oh, look, Michelle.
Oh, no, I think it was my turn. The number 4 fear is fear of financial problems, right? And that kind of makes sense, right? Fear of being in debt, fear of not paying your bills. That makes sense. That's a reasonable fear, right?
Yeah. And number 3? Number 3 is fear of insects.
I'm not so afraid of insects. I'm not saying I like insects, but I'm not like afraid of them exactly. I'm just not the giant fan. But like I don't have a problem of, I don't have a problem with cockroaches and things. So
I don't have it. Bill was your friend from high school.
Yeah, old buddy from Newark, Delaware.
Yeah. So then number 2 is yours.
Number 3, 3 is insects. Number 2 is actually a fear that I have a little bit. Fear of heights. I don't have this to the point that it freezes me, right? But like Andrea really wants to go skydiving, right? Like her and her friend Max are always talking about this. They're going to go skydiving. Like they have a place where they have parasails, right? So it's like you jump off of a mountain and fly around for an hour just on the wind. And I don't know if I can do that. Because I'm not terrified of heights, but like being 300 or 400 meters in the air with nothing underneath me, I don't know if I can do that. I'm not sure I can handle it.
I think it's fantastic. I was talking
and what's
about
number
this
1? What
Ursula.
is? Oh yeah, the skydiving.
Yes, because she wants to do it too.
Yeah, you guys are going to have to plan an excursion to go skydiving.
Yeah. Only
I'll stand
women
on the ground and
because
take pictures.
men are afraid. Yes,
Yeah,
men
I'll
are
stand on the ground and
afraid,
take
so we are
pictures,
gonna go.
okay? And what is the number
And
one fear?
uh,
Great memories, Bill.
I'm
That's not a
afraid of
lie.
these memories.
No, that's not a lie. So, and
Okay.
what is the
So,
number one fear of the people of London?
so the number one is fear of public speaking. And this is also called glossophobia. And
Yeah, guys,
this,
glossophobia. That's probably a new technical term for us, right? Glossophobia,
yeah,
fear of speaking in
gloss,
public.
yeah.
And it's funny if you look at the list, guys, because think number 7 is the fear of death, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And number 1 is fear of public speaking. That means the average person from London would rather die than give a speech.
Yeah, because I think people are afraid of destroying their how can how do I say
The reputation,
I
maybe?
when it, yes, reputation, yes, that's it. But at the end of this life, we are going to talk about it. How, because you are not going to lose your reputation because you did a lecture or talking to a different person. And but this is something we work a lot here at Seminal, right, Cliff?
Yeah,
We work
presentations
a
are a
lot
big
with
part of the focus of our
present.
work.
Yeah, we help people to.
Well, Bill, the thing is, if you train with us, you will make a killer speech, right? We
Yeah,
we can
I'm
almost
sure
guarantee.
he will. So people, if you know somebody who has who has fear of public speaking or glossophobia, invite this person to come here with us because we have some tips at the end of our live to tell you, okay? Hi, Dennis. It's nice to see you here.
Hey, there's
Dennis
Dennis.
is
Hey,
one.
Dennis.
Dennis is one of our students, and he's living in the United States right now in Boston. I think he is still in Boston. Okay,
So, what are some
Cliff?
of the symptoms of this fear? How would you feel physically or emotionally if you have this fear?
Yeah.
And guys,
Well,
let us
when I
know
start,
if you feel any of these symptoms when you're speaking. Please feel free to comment in the chat if this sounds like we're talking about you.
yeah. Well, when I started doing public presentations in college, I had some of these symptoms. Of course, people, it's not a problem for you. Oh, we are apprehensive before entering on the stage. Or when we receive a new student, sometimes we are anxious because it's
But
our
guys,
business.
I was watching Jordan Peterson today, and Jordan Peterson is maybe one of the most famous public speakers from Canada. You know, he's a guy who talks to crowds of many hundreds or thousands of people all the time. You know, at least weekly, and sometimes on a daily basis if he's touring. And he said that, of course, he gets nervous before he speaks in public, right? Being nervous before you speak in public is natural because you want to do a good job, right? You want the people that you're communicating with to get your message, you know, you want to inform them. or you educate them, connect with them, right? So being nervous before you speak is a completely natural thing. And that's something that you'll hear actors that act on the stage. They always say the first performance of the play, they've rehearsed for months and months and months. And then the first performance of the play, they always get first night jitters, right? The first time they're going to do it before the audience, you know? So that's kind of a completely natural thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I have a very good story about a girl. Here in Brazil, there was a place, I don't know if this person still continues working with public speaking. The guy was Reinaldo Polito. And I went there because it was my dream to know him and to do his course. And then I went to his institute, and it was about 500 people in the audience, and he invited everybody to go on the stage and to say, "What's your name? And where do you live and your age?" Only this, because there were a lot of people. There was a girl who laughed all the time she was on the stage. She couldn't even say her name. So then that's why I tell you, there are a lot of situations, a lot of information about the symptoms. But sometimes people have unexpected symptoms of nervousness, okay? So the first one that I saw in a research is rapid heartbeat. So this,
you feel like your heart is racing, right?
Yeah.
You get in front of that group of people and you feel like your heart is racing. It's like 300 times a minute, it feels like. Another common symptom of the fear of public speaking is trembling, right? You get that shake, little tremor in your body. You feel like you can't control it, right? So sometimes we might start to tremble when we have to when we have to speak in public.
Yeah, imagine this is a terrible situation because your public, one thing that we need to think is that the public is not there to see a failure, but your success. So, and you are trembling, sweating. The next one is sweating. So, and I had a teacher at college. I had a very good teacher that was always afraid of the class, and he couldn't. He had a good class, but his shirts were always
It would get soaking
full
wet,
of water.
right?
You could do this
you could wring the sweat out of his shirt. Yeah. But I have to say, I mean, I've been teaching for 21 years. Andrea has taught for even longer. And, when I am teaching a new group for the first time, I get in front of the classroom for the first time. I also can get a little nervous, but not to the point that I'm sweating, right?
Yeah.
A kind of serious symptom that I would say differentiates just being a little nervous from actually having a fear of speaking in public is that you can get nausea, and some people even vomit when they're faced with the idea of giving a speech. Now, of course, that's an extreme reaction, right? But we're talking about a phobia here, guys. Phobias are kind of a relatively serious mental condition. This isn't just like, oh, I don't like spiders. If you have a phobia of spiders, seeing the spider will paralyze you, Nobody really loves spiders, I think, but it's not going to paralyze you if you see a tarantula. You're just going to say, big spider, right? But some people who really are apprehensive about speaking could feel sick to their stomach. And I think butterflies are normal, right? When you got to speak, when you got to teach a group or give a presentation, you know, I think butterflies are normal. I think about us, Hun, when we first started doing lives and when we first started recording videos and stuff on the internet.
Wow.
Like, yeah.
It
I
was
think
terrible for me.
some of my early videos were just really, really terrible. And just terrible because I would get nervous and you know, kind of lock up, right? But this type of thing, you get used to it, right? What else do we got?
Yeah. We have shortness of breath or hyperventilating person.
Yeah, hyperventilating is actually pretty dangerous, right? Because if you hyperventilate, you can actually pass out from it, right? So hyperventilation is a kind of a serious side effect. Shortness of breath is probably not going to make you fall unconscious, but hyperventilating certainly can. And you see the old like common knowledge cure is we make the person breathe into a paper bag, right? You get a paper bag and make the person breathe into the paper bag. They say it recycles the carbon dioxide, and your body, you know, gets kind of convinced not to overbreathe, right?
Yeah.
But that can be quite a serious problem. Another relatively serious one, in my opinion, is dizziness. You know, you might start to feel uneven on your feet or feel the room spin, right? And that's you know, quite a kind of a risky, you know, a little bit of a dangerous side effect. You don't want to fall down on stage.
Well, the cat
I can't recall personally ever feeling dizzy because I had to speak. When I've had to, I've been a little bit nervous. I've gotten a rapid heartbeat. I had to speak in front of a group of 300 other teachers a few years ago. And I thought, man, that's a rough crowd, right? A group of 300 teachers, that's a rough crowd. That's not your normal audience. I got a little rapid heartbeat, but I didn't get dizzy.
Yeah, the other symptom is muscle tension. When
muscles tighten up, right? Get those knots in your shoulder, right? Start to hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then kind of I guess a potentially ruinous one is the urge to run away. You don't want to run away. You got to do your doctoral dissertation, right? You don't want to run away from the bench, right?
Yeah, so I had this problem in one of my presentations when I was in my graduation, and I had 40 minutes to make a presentation, and I did it in 20 minutes. And I had a very good grade because I had 9.5. I lost a half point because of my urge to get away. And my teacher, after my presentation, told me, "Why did you speak so fast? You speak very well in public. There's no problem. What's the problem? Why did you do that?" I was really anxious to do this presentation.
Yeah, but that's something we talk about in the workshop, you know, in our public speaking workshop. That you can actually you sound like you're more serious, like you're more authoritative when you speak slowly, you know. When
Mhm.
and I think everybody knows certain speakers uh, that when we hear them, we we are filled with confidence to hear them. And I like to give the example of Morgan Freeman, because Morgan Freeman has that cool, calm presentation, and he speaks with a lot of gravitas, right? So, and it's a key to communication. We regularly see, and I don't want to get too deep into the material today, but we regularly see that when we are on a conference call, for example, you have an audience that has very different language levels. You know, if you're not always talking to, and it can be challenging, but imagine if you're the only Brazilian and you have a room of Americans, then them understanding your English isn't an issue. But imagine in many of the situations that we're in today, you have a mix of native speakers and second language speakers with varying levels of uh, comprehension. So you kind of owe it to your audience that you kind of owe it to your audience to speak in a measured tone so that the people have time to comprehend what you say, right? And the tendency really is when we're nervous, we tend to speak, quite quickly, you know, and that does not help the person who is trying to listen to us, even if we're speaking in our own language. We can have moments where we don't completely understand each other because of that, problem with speed. And English and Portuguese have something in common. They're fast languages. Like we say a lot of syllables in English and in Portuguese. So if I get nervous, I'm already speaking a fast language. And then if I get nervous and accelerate it even more, in both English and Portuguese, we see the same problem, that it's going to impede a little bit the understanding of the people we're talking to. Right?
Yeah. And now it's the time to give some
Yeah.
tips for people to lose the fear of public speaking. So people,
Guys, if you think you have a friend or coworker, fellow student perhaps, that you think needs a
yeah,
little bit of help with their fear of public speaking, you can send them an invitation, right? Invite them to join the live so that they can hear our tips.
yeah. And one thing that I always say is that the first and best way to do a better presentation is practice. Practice, practice, practice. English and public speaking abilities, even in your own language, not only in English, because when we want to do a presentation, it's important to prepare yourself. And then, so that's why we would like to invite you to know our workshop, our public speaking workshop that's going to happen on November 6th, okay? So, but even if you don't come to our workshop, we have some tips that I'm sure if you use them in your presentation in English or in Portuguese, it's going to be very better than it is actually is right now. Okay? And how more you practice, better your presentation will be. So the first one, you need to be expert in the topic you are going to say, you are going to present people. So you need to know your topic. What am I going to tell? What I would like to tell to people? What's the story I want to talk about? So if you know what we're going to talk about, if you know the topic, if you know the story, so you are going to have less mistake. if you practice, you don't need to have glossophobia or even a, a tiny fear of public speaking.
Very, very important is that you got to get organized. So ahead of time, carefully plan out what you need to present. Now, in many of our presentations today, you're going to use PowerPoint or one of those I'll see you later, Bill. Thanks a lot for stopping in, man. I'll check out the videos when we've finished. So if you need to use a PowerPoint, or if you have any, you might actually have a sample or something like that that you need to show people. And sometimes we see that it's useful to have something to show people. And I've heard the advice that if you're nervous about what to do with your hands, it's, nice to have something you can hold. But I do want to caution a little bit about that, because you want to be able to gesture when you're speaking. So sometimes, depending on what you're holding, you might kind of prevent yourself from being able to gesture. But if you're going to have a handout, for example, if you have a chart, or if you have a PowerPoint presentation, you need to get these things ready ahead of time. And Andrea has many times before told her horror story about having a technological issue and not being able to present her PowerPoint presentation, right?
Yeah.
So, it's very important that you keep it very organized, and it's very important that you kind of understand the situation that you're going into. I think the idea of writing notes about your speech is, it's always a good idea to prepare notes. Sometimes we're in situations where we can read speeches. I regularly talk about that famous speech, "Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish," from Steve Jobs. It's his most cited speech, and he reads the whole speech. I think it's Columbia University's graduation ceremony, right? And, Jobs reads it. So sometimes you're in a situation that you can read your speech. But sometimes, and if we look at most TED Talks, I don't think I've ever seen a TED Talk that the person read.
I saw.
Yeah.
I saw in the beginning of the pandemic, there was a person from health that she got a lot of information, scientific information. She read everything. But it was the only TED Talk I saw a person reading.
Yeah,
I've
never seen it. I haven't seen that talk.
I don't, but I believe it was only in the beginning of the pandemic, because the girl was
saying, they may not have had time to prepare, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Here's the information, read it, right? We sometimes see that on the news when you have a extremely fresh story. Sometimes they will hand paper to the news, the presenter, and the presenter will read the important news. But that's very rare. And normally when we give a speech, we don't want to give the impression that we're reading. It can be a little bit boring. So it's a good idea to prepare a card that has the key points and the organization of your speech on it, so that you can kind of stay on track. You can look at something and stay on track, right? So if you have a podium, for example, to be able to put your notes on the podium where you can see them is kind of convenient, right? We see in most American late night television shows the the presenters normally have note cards because they're going to interview a famous person about some movie or something, right? So normally they have note cards with their key questions and things written on them. So it's a good idea to keep to be organized, know what it is that you're going to say, and to have your notes ready in advance.
About getting organized, I think we don't need just to think about the papers or presentation, but also about the environment. Because if you have a very organized place with everything working well, you are going to be more comfortable to make your presentation. So I think it's a very good tip, because I passed through some situations like this that I was just sure that my contractor had done his job well, and it was not done. I get some problems because I didn't organize something by myself. So, and then the other one, I told it in the beginning, but here I repeat: practice, 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 and more practice of speaking. If you need to do a presentation, please, especially if it's an important presentation, prepare yourself. Prepare yourself. Make a presentation to a friend, to your family, to the mirror, in your bed,
To your cat,
everywhere.
to your fish,
Yeah.
to your plants, right?
Yeah.
Your mother.
And if it's in English, and if you need to present to somebody, if you need to present somebody else, that can help you with your presentation. If it's in English, you can ask Cliff and I. Okay.
One of Andrea's pieces of advice, and this is something you get more comfortable with over time, but she talks about the idea of recording yourself. If you're preparing for something, in advance, and you have time to do it, and we understand not every speech, not every time you make a presentation, do you have the time to practice 100 times and make a recording and watch it to see how it's doing. But a lot of famous public speakers use this technique, and Andrea is a big fan. Record yourself and watch it, Then you can see maybe issues with your speech structure, or maybe an issue with your pronunciation, that while you were talking that it seem to flow naturally, and then when you listen, you go, wait, that's not the way I want to hit the word. And sometimes watching your presentation, if you can watch yourself giving your presentation, you might notice that there's some things that you want to add or some things that you want to trim, right? Now, if we want to challenge if our specific worries. You may have something that you're actually, a specific thing that you're actually concerned with. So the problem with worrying is that you can you can destine yourself to failure if you focus on the idea of failure too much, right? So you don't want to constantly focus on what it is that could go wrong. And I know I've given this example 100 times, but I think it's really apt. The difference between a professional golf player and an amateur golf player comes down to mindset. The amateur golf player thinks, on the third hole of this course, I always have problems with the water hazard. And the amateur focuses on that water hazard. And then what happens? You get to the third hole and you hit your ball into the water. Professional golfers, when it's time to play in that official game, they focus on the parts of their game that they are good at, where they can improve, right? So the professional's thinking, I'm at 4 strokes on the 6th hole, but I can knock that down to 3, right? Focusing on things, their strengths, and things that are going to make them successful, right? So you don't want to, if you worry too much, you're going to overestimate the likelihood that something bad's going to happen. And you might kind of trip yourself up and cause yourself to make a mistake. It's good to, when you have real worries, real concerns, it's good to make a list of them. Sometimes if you make a list, you can look at it and say, some of the things that I think I'm worried about aren't really problems. You know, I'm kind of wasting my time worrying about the issue. Of course, sometimes we do have a serious issue. You might have imagine that there is a technical term that you need to use that you're not comfortable pronouncing, and there's no substitute. It has to be this, you know, it has to be this term. So yeah, that's a concern, and you need to practice as much as you can. Listen to native speakers saying the word, or if it's within your own language, listen to people who are in the field say the word, and to practice imitating their pronunciation or intonation. And something that I would suggest, and I say this relatively frequently, if we're speaking in our second language, there are words I have difficulty pronouncing in Portuguese, right? There are some words that I guess I built myself a problem to pronounce, and knowing that I'm going to have to say them, I get a little bit concerned, because I'm like, man, I'm going to have to say that word that I have a problem with. Oh, are there any other ways that I can say it? Do I have another option, right? How can I change what I have to say so that I can use another term, or use another word, or explain it in a different way? And we don't want to focus on bad outcomes. I think I always say how important self-talk is. And that's in life, right? Not just in public speaking, but if you can use your self-talk to talk about the good outcomes, you know, what really is the probability that it's not going to work out well? Well, as Andrea said a few moments ago, the people who are there to listen to you are not your enemies. They want the speech to go well. They want to know what you have to say. You know, they're kind of rooting for you. They want it to be good because they want to hear what it is that you have to say. So it's a good idea to think, you know, what is really the chance that it's not going to work out? What's the chance that it's going to be a disaster? And when you think about it, normally in public speaking, kind of the worst case scenario isn't really that bad. Now, if we talk about some of the situations, if you're going to a job interview, or your interview for university, for American universities, there's an interview. Yeah, there is a potential bad outcome, but there's also a potentially really good outcome. And we want the good outcome, right? We want things to work out in our favor. You want that job. You want that position at university, or you want your master's degree project to get approved. So, you know, if you're a salesperson, you want to make the sale, but the other person also wants to buy the product, right? You want to sell and the other person wants to buy. So the outcome that you want to focus on and kind of concentrate on has to be the good one, right? You want to bias yourself towards optimism. That's natural for us, right? For people. But you really want to bias yourself towards optimism, right?
Yeah. But even when the presentation is not that good, people, if you have a problem, especially now, we are working a lot online with technology. If you have a problem in your device, you can, until at this way, have a good result. This week I had a terrible thing. I was talking to a guy, and I was introducing my company. I have two problems in reality. And the first one, I was talking to the guy, and my computer said, there is an error. And I was like this. I called the guy through WhatsApp. Cliff continues the conversation. And then Cliff continued, and the guy is our student right now. And the other thing was a guy that we couldn't see each other in the camera, on Zoom, on Meet, and on the other one. What is the other one?
On Teams.
That I don't... On Teams, yeah.
Teams. Yeah.
Then we couldn't listen and see each other. So then I told him, is that when he could listen to me, but he couldn't see. Then I told him, so would you mind talking without the image? No, I prefer to speak seeing you. Okay, let's go to WhatsApp. So you need to get solution, not be stressed. In the past, I really got really stressed, and then it was impossible for me to continue the conversation. But now everything is in front of the computer. How can you do better if you have a problem like this? Is to have a good mood and to say, okay, let's go to another device, to another program.
Guys, and don't forget the basics, you know.
Yeah.
I had a situation. This was several months ago, but I had a situation where the student was at work, discovered at work that their firewall does not permit video conferencing software, and you know, we ended up going to Skype. Because Skype is installed on Windows in every computer in the world, you know? So we jumped on our Skypes, logged on, added each other as contacts, and we were able to do the meeting that we wanted to do. We were able to do it using kind of the, old favorite, right? Nobody's, very few people are using Skype today because there's so many other options, but, Skype is still there. Telegram has video calls. Facebook has video calls. WhatsApp has video calls. So a lot of times we do have other options. We have other ways to keep in touch.
Yeah. So the next tip is for you to visualize your success, people. So if you think and if you visualize it's gonna be a failure, you are gonna fail. So pay attention at this. Just imagine, okay, my presentation is gonna be terrific. Everything is gonna be fantastic. I can get the success. You need to imagine and imagine details in your mind. So you can be sure you are going to be much less, you are going to have much less fear of public speaking.
Kind of an old piece of advice. Andrea and I are doing yoga now, right? And a thing that they talk about a lot in yoga is being conscious of your breathing. And deep breathing has been used as a way to relax, as a way to control your thinking and, level your mind for millennia, right? Thousands of years now, people have been using deep breathing as a way to, calm down a bit. And, they've actually done a little bit of research that there is a level of inhaling and exhaling that if you can maintain it, it's almost impossible to continue to be angry or nervous, right? So if you can cycle your breaths in 6-second cycles, just 2 or 3 breaths is normally enough to calm you down. And I say a 6-second cycle. So I'm going to inhale, exhale. Just one breath calmed me down a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
It's very
But 2 or
good.
3 breaths at that 6-second cycle remarkably calms you down. It's kind
Yeah.
of, you just have to keep the discipline, make sure you get the rhythm right, and it's, a remarkable way to calm down. And very traditional, and everybody's been saying it for years, but it really works.
Yeah. And the next one is focus on your material, not on your audience. So people, if you have an audience, they are interested in the information, not on the way you are making the presentation. So it's important then your audience, it is very hard for them to notice your nervousness. So then you can be sure, as this book I'm reading, the TED Talk, the guy says, every time we have a lecturer that is very nervous, the audience is very good with them, is very attentive.
Yeah,
And the last
I
one.
saw a TED Med not long ago. Ariane, it's one of the ones about sleep that I showed to your group. That a doctor who is a sleep specialist, um, he's clearly nervous to give his TED talk, but the audience is very supportive. People want to hear what he has to say. And, being nervous is natural. Not everybody loves public speaking, and your audience is gonna accept it, right? They're not gonna judge you because you're nervous speaking in public, because many of the people in the audience are probably just as nervous, right? When they have to do the same thing. So people are generally quite supportive, right?
Yeah.
And our last tip is that you need to recognize your success, right? After a speech or a presentation, you should give yourself a pat on the back. Even if it wasn't perfect, you shouldn't be too critical of yourself, right? You have to recognize, I did it, and I communicated what it was that I needed to communicate. And really, connection is the central goal of communication, right? We want to connect with people, so you should give yourself the congratulations and job well done. It's nice to look back, don't beat yourself up, but it's nice to look back and go, man, look at all those worries I had, none of them happened, right? Or even maybe perhaps if they did, you can think, well, I was really nervous and I got sweaty, but I still gave my speech and I still communicated to people, right?
Yeah.
So, and remember, guys, everybody makes mistakes, and we have to think that there's an opportunity, right? If there's something that I can work on, then that gives me an opportunity to improve and to make sure that I do even better next time.
Yeah. So, people, that's all for tonight. And I hope you enjoyed our live. It's going to be recorded on our Instagram. And this is just a piece of information we are going to bring on our workshop on November 2nd. So you are all invited to come. This is going to be an event completely in English. Ariane, she participated in our first masterclass that was before, but we are reorganizing all the material. Everything is going to be very, very good. If you are interested in this kind of issue, if you want to improve your English, improve your communication skills, so talk to me. Everywhere we have our telephone. I'm going to put it again. I put it here on our chat. But if you want, you can call me, you can send me a message, and it will be a pleasure to talk to you about it.
November
Okay?
6th is a Saturday. Amor, what time is that going to start?
It's going to start at 3, and it's going to be from 3 to 6 p.m. So it is only 44 reais for the second lot. We are going to have 4 lots. We are on the second. And then, so people, come in for the first 2 lots because it is very, very, in a very good price, a very good value for you to have some practice in public speaking, and also for you to know our job, for making network, for doing network.
Yeah, you get to know a bunch of interesting people, right? That's a kind of an important part too.
So that's it. Let's go.
All right,
people.
guys.
Bye. More than 1 hour of live.
Yeah, we went over today, and Instagram is okay with it, right? They don't mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Bye. See you.
All right, guys. See you next week.
Bye, people.